Hey, Mr. Unit 93. Finally getting on your Mod V, my friend. I see where you're talking about the dead short. And I think I have already found where the dead short is. I hadn't got down here and removed it yet, but I'm pretty sure. See if I can't zoom down in here. In front of the transformer. Let me move this out of the way.
You know how it, I guess they can determine that by vibration, and there's all kinds of analysts that do that.
See that glob of solder?
Yeah.
It sounds like it's right there on top. Yeah.
Right there.
In the eighth of a mile, it's not a huge distance. I mean, it sounds like
Right here. It appears it's touching the front of the transformer and then to ground right here. It looks like somebody had took this cap off right here and resoldered it on or something, and the solder just dripped down and shorted the transformer to ground. And it's a good possibility it might have popped this pill, but we'll have to wait and see. Maybe you got lucky. So I'll be back when we get down there in that tight spot and remove it. Take some of that solder off that transformer too. Alright, Mr. Unit 93, got this thing all done, all sewed up for you, man. This thing definitely is leaving here way better than it was when it got here, that's for sure. Got this thing all cleaned up for you. Take a look how shiny that board is now. Got all the flux off of it, majority of it. Well, you had more wrong than just a dead short, bud. After I fixed the dead short, you got lucky, my man. The transistor was not blown. The 1000 microfarad cap, though, had devalued a good bit and was down around 800 and something picofarad. So I went ahead and just took that off and put you a brand new 1000 right here, which is right here on the output transformer. Okay, just started making watts at that point. I noticed there was a little bit of input reflect, a little bit more than I would like to see. It was about a half a watt. This cap was on it, which is 120 picofarad. It actually calls for a 68 on the schematics, but you know, this can vary from amp to amp. Sometimes it's best just to put a trimmer in there and mic it in. And guess what? Tune out right there at 69 picofarad, I believe it was. So I went ahead and dropped you a 68. That's what this cap is right here. So this cap right here came from right there. So I went ahead and dropped you down a 68 picofarad cap, and that dropped your reflect down very, very low. Your input reflect down very, very low. And you gained about 10 watts PEP when I did that too. So anyway, next thing I noticed was that your variable was blown. Or a little, let's not say blown, let's say damaged. Your variable was damaged. And as soon as you start moving down with it, your reflect comes up, and basically while you're audioing or something like that, you could just feel the taper inside just vibrating. Whenever you're at that point, the pot needs to be changed. So I got you a brand spanking new brick solid Russian variable in here now. This thing, I guarantee you, will last you the rest of this amp's life, man. I've been using these now for about 4 years, and I have not yet had a customer return an amp with one of these blown. These bad boys are built like bricks. So I went ahead and threw one of them in there for you, which actually be a little cheaper than me having to charge you for a new one of these, because you can't even find these no more. I'm just slowly going out of my old stock of them. And I mean, you can still find them, but they're very expensive. I don't believe they're actually making these anymore. That's one of the reasons Texas Star quit using them for their newer amps. and there's other reasons behind that too. So anyway, so after I dropped the variable in here, this is just something I like doing with these amps. I like taking these thin pieces of wire that Texas Star uses for these, and they definitely love to use them in the Killer Bees too, which is adequate. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it at all, but it just makes me feel better to put a little bit of thicker wire in there. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Went ahead and took these out, which if I took a wild guess, it's got to be 30 something gauge wire, solid wire, with some 20 gauge wire. So I went ahead and changed that out for you. Next thing I went ahead and did is solder these tabs right here. These tabs right here. That's something I always do with these style Texas Stars, so any time down the road you won't have a problem with your lights flickering or going out on you, because after time goes, these tabs right here are touching the prong on the switch, just touching it. It can get oxidized over time, or if it's, you know, near salt water area, it can get oxidized a lot quicker. That's why you can't be around me all the time, Boots. Dang it. Sorry about that. I was trying to back up to show you something, and my cat was behind me. It always makes me very upset, not at her, but more at me for rolling over her. And I think, you know, you would think she would learn by now to not sit around me while I'm working, but cats are cats. I was just trying to come over here just to show this is how boards look that are near saltwater areas. This comes from the island of, oh goodness, my mind's blank. Bermuda, the island of Bermuda. And I hope she's okay. I've probably ran over her tail or her feet like that 30, 40 times in the last 6, 7, 8 years. I'm sure she's alright. Anyway, I'm going to turn my headlamp off here too. I just noticed I got my headlamp still on. Alright, well anyway, went ahead and put you a new knob, because this variable right here takes a different shaft knob. So I got you a new knob on the front there, and I also went ahead while I was at it and put you 2 brand new button covers, because the ones that were on here were completely rubbed off. Alright, other than that, I think that's about it, man. I fixed that dead short that was causing the problem. Somebody had, see, I've seen this happen before too. What it is people will try to solder this cap off or back on with the amp sitting like this, and the solder will seep down because it don't have a lot of room down there between that and the ground. It's always best to hike the amplifier up like this while you're soldering this cap on, so that it's not going to be dripping downward, or you got a way better chance of that not happening. And oh, the only last thing I think that I did is, this is just something I like to do with Texas Stars. It probably definitely don't help these particular amps, but I believe it does help the bigger amps like the 500 and 667. But I went ahead and thickened this trace up right here with solder. As you can see, I just thickened it up and put some solder on it. That just makes me feel better, because the output has to travel all the way down here, paper thin copper board, to the switch, from the switch to the relay, under the board to the relay. So that's just something I like to do on all Texas Stars. Alright, man, and about the only other thing I want to mention to you before we show this bad boy working now is, you've got about a 1 volt drop from the supply right here to right here. You got about a 1 volt drop, and the reason why you've got a 1 volt drop is because you got two fuses in line, and this wire down here is very thin wire. Pretty thin wire. I don't even know what gauge it is. I didn't even look at it, but it's kind of thin. It's kind of thin. Let's see here. 18 gauge. This is 18 gauge wire. It's completely up to you, but they basically got 10 gauge / 12 gauge coming into the box, and it's I mean, it's just a single transistor, but this transistor can pull, you know, up to 25 amps of current if it's being really pushed hard. It's completely up to you, man. I mean, it's working right now. I hadn't really ran it like a long period of time to see if the wire heats up or anything like that, but it would not hurt to put some thicker wire of the same gauge at least, or bigger, on here. Some 10 gauge will be adequate for this box. Some good thick 10 gauge. I'll completely leave that up to you, because I mean, you know, you got a fuse right here. It comes down to one of these quick disconnects. Actually, I think this quick disconnect may have came off a battery charger, because I know I've got 2 or 3. Well, I got 2 on the battery charger. I got 1 on an inverter. Anyway, it comes down to another fuse right here, and you do have lost 3 fuses. You really do. Main thing is you want to make sure you have a fuse at your power source if you're going to have it in a mobile or something like that. That's the main concern there. Alright, so we're on 14.5 volts. Alright, we're just going to drive it with my bench radio, which does 4 watts RMS, about 18 to 20 watts peak, and this is what we get out of it. We're looking at the 250 watt slug. Okay, that means we're going to be looking at the top scale. Okay, so where you see the 5, that's 50. In between the 5 and 0 is 25. This is RMS. Oh, right there, almost 50 watts, a little under 50 watts RMS. All right, we'll go ahead and put the peak on. Let's take a look at the PEP. Alrighty, that is right there about 120 to 125 watts PEP, and that is right in line with what this amp should be doing. And just to let you take a look at the variable, I'm gonna show you the variable on RMS first. Alright, so we're doing let me show you the input reflect before I even get started with this. 5 watt slug in reverse. Look at that. Beautiful. It was up in between. See, we're on the 5 watt slug. It was in between the 10 and the 0. So it was right there to half a watt before I went ahead and retuned the input. Alright. So we're doing almost 50 watts RMS. I'm going to cut the variable back just a little. Alright, we're about 40 watts or so. Let's cut it back a little bit more. Right there, about 30 watts or so. Let's cut it back a little bit more. A little bit more. Right there, about 25 watts RMS. Let's go back a little bit more. A little bit more. So now we're below 25 watts. A little bit more. Right there, about 10 to 15 watts. And all the way down. That right there is about 10 watts RMS. So with the variable, you have control pretty much from 10 to right there, almost at 50 watts RMS. So that variable is working great. So there you go, man. Glad I could get this up and rolling for you, brother. Make a good driver for somebody. And you know, I know you didn't ask me to clean it. I know you didn't ask me to put the lens covers on here. So Sometimes I'm just in the mood just to go the extra mile. And how do you charge somebody for something they didn't ask for? Well, you don't. That's just the old gatekeeper for you. Alright, big brother. It'd be different though if you said do your magic. Well, actually, let's see what you did say. Now, if somebody says do your magic, do whatever you feel it needs, just basically give me an open book, then that's a whole different story. Let's see what it says here. I was running the amp on May 14, 2016. For a few minutes when it stopped working. I noticed that my power supply was shorted. Now that's weird. Because the way that solder was running down there, it looked like somebody had been in there with a soldering iron, but you never know. Something may have got too hot and the solder may have just leaked down, because it did have a lot of solder on it. The Texas Star was warm to the touch. I think I keyed my CB amp no more than 30 seconds each transmission. 1 ohm out of the positive side, 12 volt of the Texas Star amp, and found that it was shorted to the ground. I think my Toshiba could be fried. Well, brother, you got lucky right there. You got lucky right there, and you got fuses on there. So it's going to be pretty hard to fry a transistor with fuses on it, if it's the right size fuse for sure, when you're dealing with a dead short, because the fuse is going to pop. But none of these fuses were blown, so I don't know. Maybe your power supply caught it before it happened. We talked about putting a used transistor in and updating anything else on. Oh, never mind. I can charge you now, big brother. I can charge for the things you didn't ask for. You know I'm just fooling with you. Let's see. Update anything else on the little amp. Alright, man, I'm just glad I got this thing down for you, buddy, and she is tip-top clean, ready to go, man. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for hanging in there with me, too, man. You waited way too long than you should have had to with this, but I'm almost caught up. I am almost there. Almost there. And I ain't going to take in no more than about 2 or 3 months worth of work after that, and that's it. I done got used to saying no to people now. Back 2 years ago, I didn't know how to say no, but I've learned how to say no now. 73's, old gatekeeper, northeast end of Georgia. Bye-bye.